Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, we're going to do a review of 2025. I've got a bit of a summary here, and then Terry's got some information on the BCIT Acoustic Lab, and then we're going to do a preview of 2026, including a informal survey on what priorities people want to see for 2026. This is a good time to plan out our year. So with that, I'd like to take a quick moment, though, to acknowledge the passing of Kerry Mobius, President and CEO of Garibaldi Glass. Kerry was not only a valued member of Fenestration Canada, but also a remarkable leader, supporter of our industry, and a personal friend. On behalf of FenCon, I want to extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and the entire team at Garibaldi during this difficult time. Kerry's contributions and legacy will not be forgotten.
Thanks, Rich. Terrible news to read, for sure.
It is. He'll be missed. Moving along to the 2025 summary. The good news is FenCan's commercial chapter has never been stronger. Our membership has never been higher, and in general, our meetings have never been better attended. Between the advocacy on counter tariffs with the federal government, education with members on what's happening north and south of the border, connecting the Canadian supply chain, spreading our message to the next generation of glass nerds, and networking with industry leaders, people have really noticed and want to get involved with this chapter. To quote Terry, our activity and growth is definitely increasing. Both Adrian and I are receiving daily interest, questions, and support requests from new people, government, provincial, city, and stakeholders. There's been a definite, noticeable increase, and I felt that as well. This is the second year for FenCon's Canadian Glazing Conference. A lot of people in this meeting right now attended that. We had over 170 attendees. The tabletop exhibits were sold out. For the most part, it was standing room only. And so we've officially outgrown that venue. More to come on that in a few moments. But, I'm still receiving tons of positive feedback on the CGC, literally just recently. And each session, in my opinion, was excellent. I attend a lot of these. In fact, Jeremy Nightingale from Greenlight Glass Systems commented on LinkedIn that the CGC was very informative, best event I have attended to date. If you weren't there, recorded sessions from the CGC are live on the FenCon YouTube channel, and I encourage you to check it out, and as well as our other YouTube videos too. So after 2 years as our chapter chair, Brent Friesen from Visionaire Window Systems has stepped away to focus on his business. And Brent has been an excellent chair. He's just a natural at it. And we're actively seeking a new chapter chair. And if you're interested, we're going to chat about that in a few moments under our priorities. But keep that in mind. And if you don't have interest today, feel free to contact me offline and chat about what it entails. And happy to have that conversation. Guardian's Jeff Shillard, thank you, Jeff, is on our board of directors. We have just over 80 commercial members, up from 65 last year. Attendance from our monthly meetings have been in the 25 to 30 range. Right now, we're sitting at about 21, and yeah, we've been getting in the 30s easily. So it's very well attended. And our glass and glazing recruitment task group has grown from to 4 members and 4 FenCon staff. We're getting traction there as well. 2025 events include the International Builders Show, Canadian Glazing Conference, FenCon, Building Envelope Contractors Conference, Top Glass, Glass Day by Garibaldi Glass, registered trademark, Facades Plus, Vancouver, FenCon Spring Conference, WinDoor, and Top Glass West. Busy year for events. Our first ever online career fair was held on September the 11th and featured 8 speakers from various trade organizations across Canada discussing training, recruitment, and the job market. The 2-hour virtual event had between 35 and 40 attendees and included speakers from the BC Center for Women in the Trades, the Canadian Construction Association, Noble Construction, FTI Ontario, the ICBA, Canadian Home Builders Association, and NACC. That was a great event. It took a ton to get it organized, but again, we had a lot of positive feedback, and look forward to doing some sort of version of that. Maybe it was 2 hours, so it was a bit of a commitment to do it. So maybe this year, if we were going to do something, we'd trim it down a little bit. But same thing, we want to grow the awareness and build on best practices from other associations. I think that we are able to achieve that. In general, all of our success over 2025 is a testament to FenCan's role as a go-to resource for Canadian glazing professionals. I'm very proud to be part of that. With over 450 members and growing, FenCan is absolutely well positioned to lead the industry into a new era. That's a review. I wasn't able to make WinDoor this year. I was at that Tony Robbins event. Terry, you're going to do a high level review
Yeah,
of.
WinDoor continues to grow. I mean, every year we get larger. Lane does a fantastic job of selling out the floor and the floor space, and the exhibitors grows every year. Um, this past WinDoor, very successful from all aspects, revenue generation, the participant numbers for exhibitors was up, like I just said, as well as the attendees was well up. Good crowds, particularly on day one, was, I mean, it was slammed. The floor was very, very busy, as well as day two. But oftentimes, as we know, the second day is always a bit lighter. But a lot of traffic. It was really well received. My focus, as most of you know, is on the education. We did, I think it was, I think 8 sessions over the 2 days. I think. Um, every session was packed. We had a lot of great content, great speakers, and participation, attendees, fantastic questions, engagement. So really pleased with where WinDoor has gone in the last 5 years. We've seen incredible growth and just the quality of exhibitors and quality of educational content continues to get better. We're headed to Montreal this year in November, I think it is. I don't know the date off. Oh, you got it
November
there,
5th,
November 5th and
5th
9th.
and 9th.
I'm working on content for that starting here in the next few weeks. I'll start digging into that after I'm done with FenCon. Um, so our goal, of course, is to grow. Montreal has been a good venue for us the last couple of times we've been there. As you know, we travel back and forth between Toronto and Montreal. It's grown as well, and we're really pleased with the participation out of members in Quebec as well as non-members that join us. And we're just really pleased with how WinDoor's gone. And if you've not gone, you really need to. And if you have gone, you can probably attest to the growth and the quality of that show.
Absolutely. I went to WinDoor in 2024 in Montreal. It was outstanding.
Yeah, great place, great venue too.
So I just want to say, we knocked off a lot in 2025. That took a couple of minutes to go through all the different activities and whatnot that we have done over the last year. We want to continue that momentum. We were talking about it before everybody joined. My analogy was coming back from holidays. It's like a momentum. This is how I explained it to my son. Momentum's like a freight train. When you get the freight train rolling, it is very hard to stop. But when you stop it, like during Christmas holidays, it takes a lot to restart it and get it going. We want to keep this momentum going into 2026. And after each one of these meetings, we have a debrief and we go over different topics that we can talk about for future meetings and whatnot. But we really are looking for feedback from this group on items that we should be tackling, speakers we should be getting, events that we should be at least attending and representing fenestration and glazing at all the above, recruiting and so that was the point of going through the 2025 is to sum up what we've done, but also to keep it going so that we can not lose that momentum.
Yeah, to tag onto that, we're always looking for content and suggestions about what it is that our membership, wants us to address. We have a lot of activities that are going on that maybe some people don't know about. So I'm going to take an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about some of the things that Adrian and I have been working on. As the whole tariff conversation, Adrian is absolutely immersed in that. He's been working with the Ministry of Finance, as well as CBSA, as well as members that are running into tariff confusion and tariff challenges. Um, I won't get into specifics, but he's working with one member right now that is faced with a almost six-figure tariff bill, and he's working through it with CBSA and the Ministry of Finance to try and understand, where this came from and if it makes sense. Sounds like he's having some good success, driving the argument that maybe these are not appropriate. So he's very, very active on that side of things. Like I say, completely immersed in it. He understands, the tariff dilemmas and the regulations regarding products for our market. So, if you're running into tariff challenges or tariff questions, feel free to reach out to Adrian. He's very open to looking at your scenario and providing some guidance or advice or connections. He has a list of brokers that are well versed in the tariff world, and he can put you in contact with people that can help to answer your questions. And again, connections at the highest level. They're meeting with very, very high level people at the Ministry of Finance on these topics. So we're well connected and we're in tune with what's going on the tariff side. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're running into those kinds of things. Um, Also, just from a connectivity point of view for Fenestration Canada, our growth into our connections in the last couple of years has just exploded. Many new connections with different groups. CHBA, where that collaboration has grown significantly. RAIC, CFIB, but probably the biggest one that we're really seeing collaboration with is NRC and NRCan. We've got multiple projects in the works with both of those groups. Adrian is actively working with them on a project to work on LCIs, life cycle inventories, EPDs, and trying to get some structure to that world because it's fairly new and there's a lot of misinformation and people that that are doing this work that are doing it differently. You can go to two consultants and you'll get completely different numbers. So NRC has been very interested in working on that. We're looking at the wildfire item. We're also working on a project with NRC on durability. Durability has a big role in the life cycle and the carbon equations for products. If a product lasts 5 years or 100 years, obviously those numbers are very different. So that's a project that's ongoing. So again, just a lot of great connectivity and collaboration with some different groups as we're moving forward. There was a new group that launched today within FenCan, a new committee. They had their first meeting today. This is the advocacy committee. So part of our mandate is to support the membership through advocacy and working with government and other entities to minimize negative impacts, to look at trade conditions and imports and everything that comes into advocacy for the membership, codes, regulations. So again, that's another item that Adrian is heavily involved in with our committee on that thing. First meeting today, but it was really great. There was a lot of good conversation, and I expect to see some good things come out of that group. So if you're interested, you can reach out to Adrian or Eddie Cho at Trimlight, I think it is, or Lee. You can reach out to Lee and he can connect you to those people. Okay, I want to talk about the BCIT item that's on our agenda here. Rich, you're good as long as I move on? You're okay with that? Okay. So a few months back, made some connections actually through BC Beck and some people that were there and got connected to some folks at BCIT. So BCIT is in the process of commissioning a equipment and a lab to do acoustic testing on fenestration systems. Um, Anybody that's done this work knows that you need to go south of the border. It can be very onerous and very costly to do this work. And we're seeing a growing demand in acoustic performance as we densify our communities. So BCIT is setting up this lab. They're working on decommission or commissioning the equipment. So they have offered to do a tour and a presentation on what they're doing. I'm working on putting that together. I'm hoping to do it in February, but schedules are just getting worse every day, it seems. But we'll make sure that everybody is advised about that, and it'll be open to all of our membership that wants to come and check this out. Um, the end goal is that BCIT will be able to do um, certified testing for acoustic performance for fenestration systems. That's a big deal if you're in that world, and if you're not, you probably will be before long. More news on that as soon as we get some dates pinned down. But along with that, what was really interesting in their setting up of this lab is that they also have the ability to do thermal testing, physical thermal testing of products. And that is a big challenge when you get into acoustic performance because they can conflict. To hit thermal performance, you might need to use specific glazing systems that may not hit these acoustic numbers. So you'll actually be able to go into one facility and do this testing on your system. So very exciting news for our industry that we're going to be able to do this work in Canada. So more news on that as soon as I have some dates pinned down. But yeah, very exciting. A lot of interest from our membership on it so far. So more to come on that as soon as I get some dates.
Very nice.
I'm going to keep going if you're good with me,
Yeah.
just to keep kind of sharing some information. For anybody that hasn't been following the CGSB, so the CGSB recently, in the last 18 months or so, absolutely, yeah, we'll make sure that information gets out to the membership once I have a date. So the CGSB, Canadian General Standards Board, I think. Anyway, they have our glass standards. So there's like 12.1, 12.8, and 12.20. Safety glass, insulated units, and structural glazing. Those standards were very, very outdated. The CGSB started updating those probably 24 months ago, 18 months ago. Well, recently, we just got news that the CGSB is being mothballed. And obviously, that was a shock to us. We didn't know it was coming. I think it was a shock to them as well. So there was a lot of concern about where the updates on these standards were going to go. I recently got information that it looks like the CGSB will have a new owner. I don't know if it's public yet, so I don't want to share um, who that is. But my understanding is it's almost a done deal, and that group will then take up the updating of these standards. 12.1 and 12.8, safety glazing and insulated glass. The work was almost complete, or I should say is complete as far as the updating. Those are now going through review with the task groups. I don't think they've gone to public comment yet, but those two will get completed. The target is for the end of March, and then structural glazing 12.20 will get taken up by the new quote unquote owner of CGSB. So just a bit of an update on that. We will see 12.1 and 12.8 updated and published. Again, target date that I've seen is for March 31st. So, okay, that's good on that. What else have I got? Rich commented about the CGC. So April the 8th, we're moving to the Park Hotel in downtown Vancouver. It's a beautiful venue, downtown Vancouver. Well, you can, good or bad, depending on your perspective. So April the 8th. So I've got 4 sessions that are confirmed for that I can share. I've got Leonard Pinalto from RJC. He is going to be presenting. Him and I are still working on the content for that, but if you know Leonard, you can be assured that it's going to be something really great. Cam Drew, he's with FenCon. He's going to be continuing on his lean sessions. This particular one is going to be using lean on the job site. And then I've got a session from Sherwin-Williams on coatings technologies. They've got some interesting new things that are coming down the pipe as far as metal systems, aluminum systems. So that looks to be an interesting session. And then the last one is from the folks at Build Neutral. They're going to be reporting on what's happening in the city of Vancouver and the requirements from the city of Vancouver on carbon reporting. So those are all confirmed. I may slip one more in there yet. I'm still working on getting some confirmations on that, but April 8th, looking forward to it. Lane has done a great job on our exhibitors. I think that's almost sold out. So if you want to exhibit, you need to contact Lane as soon as possible. Yeah, so that's that. Fenster Bow. Fenestration Canada is taking a group, as we have in the last few years, to Fenster Bow. When I say taking, we have packages available that you can participate in that are a little more friendly, and they're also setting up some tours for that group. So that's March 27th to 30th in Nuremberg, Germany. So if you've never been to Fensterbau, highly recommend it. It's an absolutely incredible show. And then FenCon in Winnipeg on April 23rd. I'm just starting to work on content for that, so we should have an update soon, excuse me, on that. And then the Fenestration Canada AGM coming up in May in Quebec City. Again, working on content for that. I expect we're going to have some great sessions there, and it's in Quebec City. And if you've never been to Quebec City, it's worth the trip just to go and check that out. So yeah, so that I think kind of wraps up online. Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's all I've got for now.
Fantastic. There's lots there. Any questions or comments from anyone? Otto had a comment about the
Yeah,
CG.
the 1220, I don't know what the timeline is on that because it is not going to be dealt with by today's CGSB. It's going to come under the purview of the new owner. Now, they have said that, they do plan to address it ASAP. So, I can't obviously speak for them, but it's on the table and they do know that it needs updating. And certainly, as you say, it's a big item for the engineering community. So,
Yeah,
get updated. Yeah.
I came across a document recently that actually has been out since 2016, draw of certain CGSP standards, and it was listed in that list with 12.6, 12.9, 10.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, so I mean, it still shows up in the NBC and
Yeah.
BCBC and all
Yeah.
that. So
It's terrible
it's
how long they've sat. Yeah.
yeah, crazy. So hopefully that gets taken care of, and we know it's current and reliable, and everybody knows to go and use it because information in there.
Yep, for sure.
Just quickly on the CGC, if you have not been to the Park Hotel, I had the pleasure of going to a facade tectonics conference there several years ago, and it is it's I would say one of the top hotels venues in Vancouver and BC, period. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking out the conference in a new venue, and especially this new venue. So
Yeah, it's beautiful. It like you said, it's probably the best for conferences in Vancouver, in my opinion. It's really great. Yeah.
So more information, you'll start seeing posts on that if you haven't already. And then like Terry was saying, sponsorships, exhibitors, they're all open. But are moving fast, and we sold out every year, so I have no doubt that we're going to sell it
Yeah.
again this year.
Yeah. You're going to want to get I think registration is open. Lee, do you know offhand?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Penetrationcanada.ca/CGC.
Perfect.
All right, if there's no further questions or comments on any of that, thank you, Terry. 2026 priorities. So this is being in this business, I know there's always a few pain points. Um, Supply chain is always a pain point. Labor is always a pain point. Um, the market is softer than normal right now. That I'm sure that's a pain point. But yeah, I wanted to open it up to the group and see what's happening in the market right now. Where is there opportunity for FenCan and this group to either provide education or advocacy or one way or another try to make your lives easier, borrow a catchphrase from Garibaldi.
Yeah. It's, obviously everything we do obviously is driven by our membership and our members' concerns and feedback. So, we need that obviously, and feel free anytime to reach out. I mean, you can, our emails are available to everybody. Phone, absolutely anytime you've got something that isn't making sense or we can get involved with. Don't hesitate. That's what we're here for, and that's what your membership dues are paying for. So don't hesitate, like anything at all. So I know it can be a challenge in a call. Some people, may not want to chime in or feel a bit shy or, oh, it's already been talked about or whatever. But, no question is a bad question. So don't hesitate if you've got anything that you want us to look into or to work on or to support or, something that we're not connected to or things like that. Right. So don't hesitate.
So on that, pain points may have been a poor choice of words as well. How about what other topics are we interested in learning more about? The first thing that comes to mind is bird-friendly glass. And I know Jeff's ears perked up when I said that, but it's an ongoing topic that everybody needs to deal with. Um, and it's constantly changing. There's new products, there's new technology on that, and so I never get bored of listening about bird-friendly glass. I learn something new every time that it gets presented. Um, triples and VIG obviously are still triples versus VIG is still a topic as well. Surely there's other areas of interest out there as well.
Yeah, one that I am interested in is in BC with the step code. Um, I know that it's laid out as to what the steps are and by which years and that type of thing. I would love to know if that's still the current trajectory or if there's any um, willingness or direction in government or anywhere else to change that trajectory, if that's up uh, for review or whatnot, or if it's set in stone. Obviously, it depends on which government is in, but that hasn't changed in our last election, so that's I would assume it's still on its current course. But I've heard sort of whisperings to the contrary. So I'm not sure if anybody has any insight on that, or if we can bring anybody in to speak to that.
I mean, we do talk regularly. Both Adrian and I meet with the folks from Building Safety Standards Branch, and ask about, what's happening, what their forecasts are. I've not heard any lifting on the gas pedal as far as step code goes. Lots of different, input and feedback, and the national code, and where it's going with its tiered code, and the guys at CHBA net zero. There's all kinds of things going on, but I've not heard anywhere that they're lifting the pedal. Now, Murray, are you on? Because I think you mentioned something about stopping at step 4 today. Can you maybe chime in on that for me?
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Sorry, yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, there are lots of interesting things going on. First of all, if no, everybody isn't aware that 2025 NBC is published and in distribution. So we have that. And it's just loaded with CGSB references in there. I just sent a note to Morshed because I'm on the reference standard committee for the National Model Code for 2030. So quick update on that. Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going back and forth. And Terry, yeah, I don't know that it's time to announce anything out there because I
Yeah,
don't know that it's actually fixed. So I don't want to get
yeah,
misinformation about
yeah, for
what's
sure.
going on with that. But we are currently still reviewing change codes and proposed change requests and public review agendas, etc., for CGSB being inclusive until we hear otherwise. But I can maybe get more of an update, or I can get that news to you as soon as it hits. Now, as to the other question, what's going on in BC? Well, first of all, it's not called Building and Safety Standards Branch anymore. Best
Oh,
best career, best business opportunity in British Columbia is to be a provincial government business card printer.
when did they change that?
Oh, in the fall. For whatever reason, I have no idea. It's
Oh, I
still,
missed that.
Zach and Junie and
Yeah.
and the staffing in there who are a very capable group, Scott
Yes.
and we know the names in there. So, what do we need to be aware of in BC and the step code and the national code? We have the Codes Reconciliation Agreement of 2016, where all the provinces and territories in Canada signed off to harmonization with the National Model Code of Canada. It was a progressive thing where the first version under the 2020 gave everybody 24 months to kind of come in line. Now that the 2025 National Model Code is in ink and published before the end, it published December 18th or 22nd. I can't remember which. Two things happened around there. What does that mean? It means that the provinces and territories, including BC, must harmonize. Now that's a big bloated question. What does that actually mean? That's, municipalities versus provinces versus federal government and everything in between. But what I can tell you is that on the 2025, the provinces and territories have 18 months to do whatever it is that they consider to be harmonization. BC in their 2024 did a pretty tremendous job of deciding which hills they wanted to die on and which ones they just said, whatever, we're just going to harmonize. So you'll see in their ventilation differentials, but you're going to see a lot of other harmonizations. So if you're really a Cody, the 2024 BC Building Code is chocked full of interesting things that have an impact on us in the fenestration industry and everything else. Not enough time today to go over that, but I'd be happy to put together a cut list of all those things. We're currently doing what do we do every year in our office, and that is converting all the PDFs into a word processing document, then doing a compare docs because they never tell you what they took out. And for 40 years, I've been involved in the codes process. And even I am shocked at what gets published after the dark period from what the committees, task groups, and everybody else sent up for final publishing. So maybe it's time for us to touch on that nationally and provincially, and I'd be happy to do that. And there are impacts in there. What do we do know? Well, they reviewed their Clean BC program here, an NDP brain fart, yet another look at greening that they could claim to be their own. And like every green program that went before it in BC, they missed on all kinds of things. What is really frustrating me to an absolute rage right now is that process went on, and in not one of the task groups, not one of the support committees, or any of the 12 task groups for the National Model Code, and the fact that I sit on the National Model Code Committee for Reference Standards, was I given any indication or opportunity or any of those operations in industry, to my best knowledge, given any indication that this independent review of Clean BC was going on. Started in May, ended in November. Now, there's a bunch of things in there. I haven't digested all of them, but the thing that really bothers me is they've actually made a recommendation to remove step 5 from the BC Building Code outright. Now, remember that the step code is only a provision that municipalities can pick up on. The only thing that the province did was for the 2024 code was to adopt a minimum step 3, and it still had step 4 and step 5. Paralleling that, the tier 5 in the national code, if you want to really bore yourself, go ahead and have a look. They have fully embraced tier 5, and they have defined their methods for prescription, performance. There's actually a lot of really good work in there. It's a bit divergent from the BC program, but at the end of the day, the target is net zero for energy, and there we go. So what did this independent review say to BC, which is now sitting obviously on the table of the provincial government for action? Well, it said abandon step 5 because it's too expensive to fix the envelope, and to put way more attention on embodied and operational carbon, because that's where they can get their win and not affect affordability. This is the most ridiculous bunch of uninformed conversation, in my opinion, that has ever hit. The simple truth is you can build a net zero home for cheaper than you can build a step 3 home, because step 3 traditionally scales how we build buildings. We take a 200-year-old lightweight frame technology and we just make fatter walls and stuff more stuff into them. And it is loaded with hygrothermal failure. And in a nutshell, that's what the leading cause by consensus out there of the leaky condo crisis in BC, in the temperate rainforest, was because we doubled the effective conductive resistance of the walls by going from 2x4 to 2x6. We went from effective 8 to 16. And now all of a sudden, water that was getting cooked out of all of the buildings wasn't. So why did all the 1940s, 50s, and 60s 4-story condos in Vancouver not fail and still not fail? And it really, that's the litmus. So what happens when we move forward in BC from step 3, which is just a mediocre improvement, right? 20%, barely measure it. Put in a heat pump and you get there, right? Add a HRV and you're a step 3 star. But it starts getting serious at step 4, because you're going from a 20% improvement in energy consumption over the year to a 40% improvement as a metric, a performance metric. At that point, there are serious questions and a ton of research to suggest that the mold index will get triggered in fully code conforming construction. I warned people about this crap in 2010. Don't back your way into energy efficiency, because to build it net zero, you can't vent your attics. Night sky cooling gets you. All that. I don't, and again, I don't want to get distracted here. But the simple truth is, taking out step 5 doesn't make net zero go away. The code still allows you to do everything to build a net zero home. But the optics of it are tremendously bad. It's suggesting that all we got to do for 2030, and BC will have to have its code out by 2032. It's going to impart a rush to framing walls in 2x10, making them fat, and we're going to leave a legacy of homes that have two things: no focus under the recommendation of this review, no focus on the enclosure, which means you're building, starting now and through till 2030, you're building a legacy of homes that can never be energy efficient at any
Okay,
appreciable.
Murray, I
Yeah.
need to pause you. How much of this, though, applies when we're talking about commercial buildings?
Well,
Like,
it depends how you talk commercial, right? Because Part 9 allows commercial construction, and that's where the step code really is prescriptive, right?
right, yeah,
In
yeah,
nature. So there's going to be, and the other thing is, there's a ton of work going on right now at the committee level in the national, trying to deal with the cooling issue. And it turns out that the number one tool in your chest for reducing deaths by overheating, which is now quantified at $8.9 million a death. And we had 619 in 5 days in BC in 2021. So, it's a real thing and it's a real priority. And cooling is now a mandatory requirement in BC, and it's on the books and will happen in the national. Didn't make it for 25. But the number one tool, the number one arrow in your quiver is your window choices. Like, it has the most dramatic impact on how much work it takes to maintain safe operating temperature conditions inside a home during high heat events and. So commercially, you're not going to be immune to any of that stuff. And all of those things now in the national code are cross-platformed. So all of the thinking and all the code work now, it has to work for part 9, and it has to work for part 5, and it has to work for part 4 structural and. So
So on
it's
that on
it's ubiquitous, right?
on
It
that
will
on
be
that
there.
specific item, because I think that that's worth a discussion here. In the National Building Code, National Model Code 2025, they have now incorporated a maximum solar heat gain table.
Yeah.
Now, in my discussions with whatever the BSSB is called now, there's no intention of them including that in the step code requirements for whatever the logic is. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. But, will that show up in commercial residential buildings? What's that connection look like?
Well, the connection is the the construction industry, the builder community, because we're looking at commercial and residential with a pretty intense commitment. And at net zero, you can build pretty much any building for less money than the stuff we're doing right now, with the exception commercially of semi-heated and that sort of thing. But we just converted our Strata warehouse that we bought here. We just converted this thing into a net zero after we bought it, and it really was not a huge undertaking because there's very little windows in it. So even in semi-heated space, we're now shirt sleeve environment 12 months out of the year, and it costs us nothing to do it. So the fact is, at some point, the builder community isn't going to require any incentive whatsoever other than the truth that they need to protect against overheating and they need to build to net zero because they can make more money doing it without getting a single incentive. So the problem lies in this transition period because builders are creatures of habit, right? Terry, I've done a
Sure.
presentation for 35 years called, "What do you mean it's wrong? I've been building that way for years."
Yeah. Yeah.
So changing the habits of a builder community, I believe, requires showing them that it can happen. And in my experience, even when we show that it can be done and we build on Karen and Mai's money examples of it, they all go, "Wow, that's amazing." But they're working for such garbage margins right now as an industry. It doesn't matter what part of construction you're in, the margins just aren't there. And so they're so hesitant to try anything but what they know. If they're only going to work for 8 points and they're subject to minimal changes in interest rates for carrying the cost of development, etc., and they're either just not building, which I think is a common cry across Canada right now. You ask the question, what's the ripple effect out there? Take a look at the reduction in builder licensing under the required licensing provisions in British Columbia for builders, right?
Yeah.
It's dropped
Yeah.
off in the last year in a double digit. So
Yeah.
all of this stuff is interesting, but I guarantee you that once builders figure out that they can build high performance buildings for the same or less than anything else that makes the threshold of the minimum standard of whatever code you're adhered to in Canada or whatever adoption level you have under the Codes Reconciliation Agreement. So at the end of the day, the only thing that is dumb is if we start taking out the capacity to build high performance buildings in the code. So I don't know who came up with the idea that getting rid of step 5 made any sense whatsoever. It's
Yeah.
just
That's news to
dumb.
me.
If you don't want to go
News to me.
there, the province has no indication. They're going to back out, and in the only way that Junie can. He's confirmed for me, well, two things. One, there will be a 2027 BC building code.
Yeah.
They have a legal obligation to publish within 18 months. They missed their 24-month obligation in BC with the 2024. And then they tried to preempt that mistake by adopting stuff before it came out in 2025. The 2025 misaligned with what they put in there. They got a bunch of mistakes. I think administratively, whatever they're called now, the old BSSB, they are committed to the fact that they need to, under federal legislation, they need to have an adoption of whatever the BC Building Code is going to look like in 2027. And he's also indicated to me that there's not a tremendous appetite for step five being mandatory by 2030. Now, again, that's weird because there's a
Well,
national
that's gonna
policy to
annoy
be at net zero by 2030.
that's gonna annoy a lot of manufacturers that have been
Oh,
developing their products for a 2030 step five. Okay, we need to carry
yeah.
on. David, are you able to unmute and ask what you were looking to ask?
I'm not sure how to out.
You're good. We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. First of all, let me say that Happy New Year to everybody. But uh, this is more of a commercial chapter meeting, and I've always been more interested or involved in the residential. So this may not be the place to bring this up, but I just wanted to find out because over the last couple of years, I've been concerned with regard to the competition that's happening for our local manufacturers, in particularly the windows, but also windows and doors, the competition that's coming in from, in particular, places like Europe. As you know, I've been involved in helping companies get certified, and so my name is published, if you wish, in different places where the offshore manufacturers have maybe picked it up. And I've had maybe five, at least five different requests for me to get involved in helping offshore products become certified. And I just wondered, I brought it up several times at the meetings and indeed at chapter meetings. I just wondered if there's anything happening to help that. What it amounts to is a lot of the products coming in from, let me use one example, and let me say Poland, uh, coming in from Europe are very, very much lower cost than what we're able to produce at. And therefore, they have a somewhat of an unfair advantage when a company decides to set up a manufacturing installation, whatever, but bringing in product that is almost completely finished from Europe. And so that, especially now with the tariffs that we have in effect, my original question had been, will we be placing any tariffs on some of this product coming in from, and let me say Europe again. And I wondered if there's been any action at all to fight that problem, especially now when we need as little competition as possible, or at least when it's competition, it's got to be fair. It's got to be the same certification. And I've, in each case, turned it over, called up and spoken to people at Fenestration and said, look, I don't want to get involved in this because I don't think I want to support against our in-house or local manufacturers. I don't want to support companies who are trying to bring in other product, which in many cases are as good a quality, I think. I don't know because I haven't gone that far into it. So my question is, has anything happened in the last couple of years with regard to restricting some of that product coming in, or is it sort of status quo right now? I don't know if anybody can answer me on that or not.
I'm going to give you some general feedback of what I know. Again, Adrian has been very involved on the tariff side of things, and obviously that lends itself to imports, be them, out of the U.S. or from offshore. We are also very aware that there are products that are coming into Canada that may be having an unfair advantage for a number of reasons. We know of some that are being subsidized by their countries, making them, extremely attractive from a cost perspective. We have been raising those items with not only the federal finance ministry, but also with CBSA. Now, when we talk about CBSA, it's more about the products meeting the Canadian test standards.
Right.
So, you know, again, I can't get too deep into it. But if a product is coming in from outside of Canada and it has been tested to our standards from a Fenestration Canada point of view, that product, it is quote unquote acceptable, right? That's where most of our push comes from, is the products need to be rated under Canadian standards. That's most of our push. When you get into things like dumping and unfair trade practices, it gets much, much more complicated. And to be honest, that wheel moves very, 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 very slowly. So we're aware. We are working on different avenues of that. This advocacy committee that I just talked about today, that is part of one of the items that they will be focused on. So yes, we're aware. We're working on it, but again, it's not something that changes overnight. It's a very, very difficult thing to deal with.
Okay, that's as far as I can ask and expect at this point. Thank you. It's just something I'm concerned about.
You bet. Yep,
Oh,
all of us are.
I also just posted in the chat as well. This just came out last week in Fenestration Review. Apparently, the Canadian government is putting 25% tariff on all foreign countries, all fenestration products and components, except for the caveat is it's only for plastic and steel. It does not include aluminum, which is odd.
Yeah,
So
when we saw that, again, I should have had Adrian here if I knew we were going to go there, but he's been digging into that in a big way. And again, talking with people at the Ministry of Finance and CBSA. The inclusion of plastic, it was very confusing because the goal of that tariff was to deal with steel. They included plastic and fiberglass actually, because those products potentially have steel reinforcing components. So it gets very muddy very, very quickly. He's trying to sort through it. It's not pretty, and I don't
Quite,
envy
quite,
his
quite
work.
honestly, Terry, I think now you see that that came in what do you say, December the 26th, so I wouldn't know
Yeah,
about that. But to me, that's exactly what the problem is. And it isn't, I wasn't so much concerned about the steel and such forth, which I could understand from where they're coming from. I was more concerned about the PVC product that was coming in.
right,
And
right.
generally, they do meet the performance standards. Whether they meet the material requirements or not, I don't know. But it looks as though somebody has been working on it, and that's good news to see that there's some tariffs going on there, which is going to affect the PVC as well as the fiberglass, as well as the steel.
Yes,
Or
yeah.
not the steel. No, maybe the
What's
steel
all
is covered by a different tariff.
Yeah, what's interesting in there is that it also captures fiberglass doors.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's
yeah,
a very complicated scenario that's going on
yeah.
with those new tariffs.
Well, something's happening. That's good.
Real quickly, sorry to pivot. We're almost out of time. I just wanted to address, Otto had a couple of good points as well, regarding a survey or something going into membership. What are your top 10, 5 or 10 issues, priorities, whatever in the industry? That's a great idea. Let me follow up on that, and we'll see if we have the ability and bandwidth to do it. But I think that's a great, and it's something to do offline and whatnot. Um, and then the other one was Murray. You mentioned about pages and pages of documents. Google Notebook LM is a great tool for pushing all your PDFs and just asking it, tell me what's different between this information. It will do it almost instantly. It is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
we got a pretty advanced tech team here, and I
cool.
appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
So we put it to the test, and it came up with wrong answers about 10% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
10%.
code is so
10%.
nuanced and it's beyond the AI to pick it up that it's
Right.
almost dangerous. And the
Yeah.
devil is more in what they take out of the
Yeah,
code
yeah.
than
Mhm.
what they change. We can identify that. But we do a straight up, side by side, and then I use 40 years of experience because I'm constantly taking the high level approach, and that's what's missing in code. the task groups, the committees, they're all focused on window or HVAC and plumbing or cooling or whatever. And the way the code is written is they only want to deal with air tightness once, so it shows up on one section in the code, but it impacts windows, it impacts the installation of windows, it impacts soil gas because they decided that the air barrier only needed to be one barrier and not a soil gas barrier. So they assume that everybody knows that the code is back referencing and cross referencing all over. And this is for commercial and part three buildings as well, because we're finding now that if you take a look at the Professional Governance Act, for example, if you're a structural engineer and you're working on a project, you have to have a second structural engineer making sure that your component engineering design doesn't compromise the overall structure of the building. And then they all need geo to know what the soils are. And geo now has to have two professionals, one looking over the other geo. So, if you want to answer a simple question like what's the site class when I'm building a house, which you have to know, right, in all new construction across Canada, you actually need to hire 4 engineers. 4.
Crazy.
And on one project that we're involved with, it added $171,000 to the construction cost, not the cost to the homeowner, just to figure out what the site class was and to put one element into that house that wasn't covered in Part 9. So the nuanced complexity and the cross-platforming now between Part 9 and Part 3 buildings, yeah, she's a complicated thing, and AI is. I wish it was, because I don't like doing this stuff. I have a
Sure.
reading disorder, right? I'm
Yeah.
dyslexic, so
My son's
it's
Okay.
dyslexic.
We need to
but
wrap
I'm
up.
happy to give you my thoughts and comments, and I'm not wrong very often.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And there was a couple other good points too. Otto, we'll look and I'll mention it to Terry about getting some sort of a document outlining the step code and see if there's something we can do there. But we are at time, so appreciate everybody's time today. And yeah, if you have any interest in the chair, just because you have interest doesn't mean that you need to take it, but feel free to get a hold of me, or Terry or anybody else for that matter. And same with any speaker or topics, please get a hold of us.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it. Thank you.